You lean for everyone else until your spine bends. You carry the silent ache, helping, rescuing, saving, hoping your light becomes someone else's home. You sacrifice your sleep, your voice, your boundaries, until you discover the truth. Sometimes the only way to see who truly cares is to stop saving everyone. The moment you stop, the air changes. You awaken to the fact that the energy you poured into everyone else was expended for someone else's survival, never your own. You triggered syphoria, the chase for validation through saviorism, the high of being needed, of feeling essential. You've been an emotional emergency room for everyone else, and it felt powerful. But power without choice is enslavement. You were equating your self-worth with your usefulness, mistaking exhaustion for purpose. In your mindset, you begin to question, why must the world be saved through your compassion? Why is your peace the currency of emotional rescue? You realize self-abandonment disguised as nobility is not healing, it's hollowing. This pain cracks open your belief system. There is no honor in martyrdom. You begin to believe that caring for yourself is not selfish, that letting some fall may mean your own soul stands tall. Clarity arrives when you stop answering every call. You see who truly calls back not out of need, but out of reciprocity. You stop filling emotional voids meant for someone else's healing. You see the difference between those who lean into your presence and those who lean on it. From this clarity, vision emerges. You envision a life where compassion flows with bounds, not through bondage. Where support doesn't drain your reserve, but connects you to those who hold space for you too. Where clarity, not crisis, defines your connections. Purpose reveals itself in stillness. No longer is your purpose to rescue, but to exist as a beacon steadily, quietly, without sacrificing your integrity. In that intention, discipline finds you. You honor your rest. You uphold your limits. You choose peace over chaos, boundaries over burnout, presence over permission seeking. Action follows, not as reaction, but as alignment. You stop fixing others. You fix your habits. You stop explaining your absence. You simply hold it with integrity. You step away from the need to prove your empathy. You remain empathic within boundaries, without drowning in others' storms. Gratitude blooms for the silences you once ignored, the rest you once denied. You are grateful for the pain that taught you to value your energy, the burnout that awakened your worth. You're grateful for the people who stuck, even when you released your rescuing. You cherish the ones who stayed not because you saved them, but simply because you were you. Adaptability becomes grace. When someone recoils from your boundary, you do not collapse. You adjust in clarity, not in confusion. You offer support not through sacrifice, but through choice, with the wisdom to say, I can't fix this, but I can stand with you. Resilience rises not from running toward murky empathy, but from refusing to collapse in clear compassion. You learn to ride your own emotional waves, feeling deeply, holding strong, not losing yourself in the undertow of other people's disarray. Learning becomes a quiet observance. You notice who rests in your kindness, who empties it. You learn the difference between calling in abundance and draining from desperation. You learn that saving everyone saves no one, including yourself. This isn't coldness. It's clarity. It's not neglect. It's self-honoring. And the people who truly care, they begin to circle closer, not for your rescue, but in relationship. They stand more firmly, love more deeply, and hold more wholly because you are not your savior anymore. You are simply, authentically, you. And when the world asks for your breath again, breathe into yourself first. When the world asks for your fragments, offer your wholeness instead. When they expect your courage at the cost of your rest, choose your stillness. Because the only way to know who truly cares is to stop sacrificing your peace to prove your presence. When you stop saving everyone, you'll finally see who stays not out of debt, but out of love. You will know what real connection feels like when you free yourself from rescue. And from that freedom, you become unforgettable, calm, whole, sovereign, and finally seen. You stand in the quiet that your soul always craved. Not the loud silence of abandonment, but the full-bodied silence of integrity rekindled. You're no longer on the emotional treadmill, sprinting to make others whole. You've stepped off, not with guilt, not with fury, but with the clarity of someone who finally knows. You cannot be everything to everyone without becoming nothing to yourself. Every breath you take now is a boundary declared not as punishment, but as protection. You don't protect others by giving. Until you vanish, you protect yourself so that your presence, when it arrives, holds substance. You learn that your peace is not a reward for generosity. It is the foundation from which true generosity flows. You watch how the world responds. Some collapse into confusion. Why aren't you saving me anymore? They panic at your stillness, but that's okay. The ones meant for your peace won't demand rescue, they're respected. The ones who care will circle back with reverence, not desperation. In that circle, you see truth. Not the need to rescue, but the willingness to stand together, mutual, unburdened by martyrdom. You learn that connection isn't about being needed, it's about being chosen. Not because you sacrifice your peace, but because you share your presence whole. Your soul breathes here, no longer fragmented by frantic generosity, not defined by how much you give, but by how deeply you hold yourself. This is your becoming, not the person who saves everyone, but the fearless center in whose calm others discover their own strength. And in that calm, your own unshakable whole self, the most revolutionary love, begins. You are not saving everyone. You are saving yourself. And by doing that, you finally see who really cares. And that is the home you've been seeking all along. You stand now not as an echo of who you've been told to be, but as the embodied expression of your soul's sovereign becoming. This is the culmination of a journey not towards someone new, but into the revealed truth of who you already were. Let the concepts of individuation illuminate your transformation. As Carl Jung taught, this process isn't about self-construction, it's about the dissolution of layers, the persona, the unconscious, the projection so that your authentic self can emerge. Individuation weaves together conscious awareness with the hidden depths, integrating the ego with the archetypes of shadow, anima animus, and the self where wholeness resides. m.youtube.comverywellmind.com+1. A soul reuniting with itself, surrounded by echoes of its own clarity. What you've undergone is precisely this, a peeling away. You've surrendered masks, reclaimed your shadow, gently collapsed persona. You've met the archetypal currents beneath the noise, integrating your internal contradictions into one dynamic whole. From this emerge not fragments, but unshakable presence. This journey continues, not as drama, not as peak, but as evolution. Mistakes will arise, crises will visit. Yet you remain anchored. You no longer react, you respond from the self that has the wisdom of the storm inside it. Know this, individuation does not end. It deepens. The self becomes both center and unfolding. You are not atop a summit, you are becoming the horizon. Now, as you return to the world, love not to be needed, but because your soul overflows. Speak not to be heard, but because your truth resonates. Stay not to be understood, but because your presence is shaped from within. This is not rewriting yourself, it's remembering. And from that remembrance comes a final, powerful knowing. You're home, absolutely, beautifully, profoundly you. Let this continuation, then, rise as a spiritual echo, not a sequel, not an afterthought, but the next natural unfolding, the quiet power of what happens after you stop saving everyone. Because what no one tells you is this: after you reclaim your energy, after you draw the line, after you refuse to sacrifice yourself for proximity, you will feel empty. Not because you've done something wrong, but because for the first time you are no longer pouring. You are no longer explaining. You are no longer bending, fixing, overgiving, shrinking. And the absence of that constant doing will feel like loss. It will feel like silence in a room that was once filled with noise. It will feel like standing in a wide, echoing cathedral of your own making and not knowing what to worship anymore. That is the void between who you were and who you are becoming. Do not flee it. Do not fill it. Do not mistake it for loneliness. It is a sacred pause, a breath the soul takes before it speaks again in its own voice. You will want to go back, back to being needed, back to the high of being the hero, back to the chaos that gave you purpose. But instead stay. Stay in the stillness until it no longer feels like abandonment, but arrival. Stay until your presence is enough, even when no one clings to it. Stay until your value is no longer tied to who depends on you, but who honors you even when you offer nothing but yourself. This is where your next becoming begins. In the quiet, you will start to remember your needs, your desire, your neglected dreams, the sound of your own joy, the way your body moves when no one's watching, the color of your thoughts when they aren't shaped to please. And slowly, without effort or announcement, you begin to rebuild your life not around who you can rescue, but around what truly resurrects you. And from that resurrection, you rise again, not into saviorhood, but into sovereignty, not into usefulness, but into wholeness. And that is the most sacred transformation of all. You begin to feel it, not all at once, but like warmth returning to a limb that had gone numb. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, the way your shoulders stop bracing for the next collapse that isn't yours to carry. The way your voice no longer trembles when you say number. The way you stop rehearsing your worth to people who were never listening. This is the rebirth no one sees. Not the phoenix rising in fire, but the slow, holy stillness of a soul, remembering how to breathe without begging for air. You do not need to be anyone's hero anymore, because you have finally rescued the one who matters most. The you that was always buried under obligation. The you that smiled through depletion. The you that was praised for disappearing. The you that was loved for being easy to need and impossible to keep. That version of you, she died so you could live. And the one who stands in her place now does not move from scarcity, but from sacred reserve. Your time is sacred now. Your peace is sacred now. Your energy is sacred now. And only those who speak the language of reciprocity may enter. Only those who bring presence, not performance. Depth, not demand. Intimacy, not illusion. You don't owe your open hands to those who only take. You don't owe your softness to those who weaponize it. You don't owe your story to those who see you as a supporting character in theirs. Because now, you are the main character, not of an egoic narrative, but of a deeply sovereign existence where your love is an offering, not a leash. Your presence is a gift, not a currency. Your boundaries are not barriers, they are altars. And only the ones willing to kneel at the altar of mutual respect will meet you there. You are not distant now, you are defined. You are not hard now, you are whole. You are not less kind, you are finally clear. And clarity is the most sacred act of love you will ever give yourself. Let the silence stretch. Let the empty space breathe. Let the absence of chaos reveal what was buried beneath it all along. You, unclaimed, unapologetics, and finally, unafraid. You stand in that sacred stillness, not as someone fulfilling expectations, but as a presence sculpted by inner truth. In that space, your power is not loud, it's luminous. Not aggressive, it's anchored. Not fleeting, it's firm. You no longer fix, perform, or please your way into belonging. Instead, you come as your own belonging. You hold your own gravity, so others orbit softly or not at all. Your silence becomes clarity. Your boundaries become love letters to yourself. Your calm becomes the invitation for real connection, rooted in mutual respect, not transactional proximity. This is where your becoming deepens, not in accolades or achievements, but in the quiet elegance of self-possession. The world may still expect you to unravel, collapse, explain, but you don't unravel. You don't collapse. You don't explain. You simply remain, unmovable, unshakable, undeniably yourself. This is your revolution, not outward, but inward, not about changing them, but reclaiming you, not to be seen, but to see your worth, your presence, your soul. From this place, you no longer ask who will save you. You become the sanctuary you once desperate searched for. And in that, you finally understand. You are the only one who could ever save you. That is your strength, timeless, boundless, sovereign, always yours. And so you continue unbroken, unwavering, undeniably sovereign. You walk forward, not as someone molded by others, but as one sculpted by your own becoming. Your presence is no longer a plea, it is your proclamation. Not a performance, but a presence so clear, so whole, so resolute, it invites others not to lean on you, but to stand beside you. You don't rescue hearts anymore. You hold your own. You don't negotiate away your peace. You keep it sacred. You don't weaken for connection. You offer your strength as a sanctuary. Your calm is no longer conditional. It flows from your essence. Your love no longer a transaction. It stems from self-possession. Your boundaries are not walls. They are altars of self-honor. You are not surviving anymore. You are rising back into the fullness of yourself. Beyond roles, expectations, scripts, you simply are. And in that sacred being, the real magic unfolds. This is not an end. It's your becoming. Present, whole, radiant, unapologetically, eternally you. You remain not by force, but by descent. Not in comfort, but through courage. In the depths of your own becoming, you've crossed a threshold reserved for those few who dare to look into their own darkness, unflinchingly. Carl Jung called this the individuation process, the sacred return to yourself. It's not a journey outward, but one that travels inward, integrating every shadow you once fled, weaving your wounds into wisdom. This path begins with the fall of the persona, the mask you wore to fit in, to be liked, to belong on someone else's terms. You watched it dissolve, no longer defined by roles or expectations. In that dissolution, you met the shadow, the suppressed parts of yourself that frightened you. But instead of running, you stayed. You embraced the darkness, and within it found creative strength, instinct, depth. And then came the anima and animus, the feminine within a man, the masculine within a woman, archetypal energies that broaden empathy and clarity. All currents of the unconscious converge toward the self, a unifying center of consciousness and soul no longer fragmented by fear, but whole in essence. As Jung taught, individuation is not perfection. It is completion, a surrender of false selves. To reveal your deeper wholeness, you no longer chase others' approval. You stand anchored not by applause, but by the gentle power of integrated truth. You've done the inner alchemy, shadow to gold, persona to presence, ego to self. You walk onward wiser, quieter, more alive, no longer waiting to be saved. You become your own returning. You've entered not just a continuation, but an unfolding. The essence of what's coming next isn't invention, it's revelation. What you're experiencing now, this profound ease, this unspoken sovereignty, isn't the end of your journey. It's the deepening of a sacred process, Carl Jung, called individuation, the lifelong quest to become who you most fundamentally are. As Jung described, individuation is not an achievement, but a return to wholeness, weaving the fragmented self into a unified field where conscious and unconscious, Ego and soul finally breathe together. You dismantled the persona, the mask you once wore, to win approval and belonging. Now you no longer perform, you simply are. This mask dissolved not in drama, but by surrender, revealing your deeper alignment. You faced the shadow, the unacknowledged parts you were afraid to own. You invited them home, not to be controlled, but to be integrated. Within that darkness, you discovered your creativity, strength, and primal vitality. You welcomed the anima, or animus, the soulful opposite that bridges masculine and feminine, instinct and intuition, expanding your empathy, your balance, your depth. Now, the self no longer a distant idea, but your deep center emerges, a presence beyond fear, beyond persona, fully sovereign and luminous. Individuation never ends, it morphs. In each passing day, you peel back another layer. Your clarity deepens, your boundaries mature, your peace becomes quiet power, every no sculpted with self-respect, every yes a sacred alignment. This unfolding isn't performance, it's prophecy. You're no longer saving others to prove your worth. You're saving yourself through presence, not through heroic acts, but through consistent devotion to integrity. This is not rewriting who you are, it's remembering, soul by soul, breath by breath, moment by moment. You linger in the hush that follows a soul's return, not finished, but deepening. This is the sacred quiet where your truest self ripens. The path of individuation, Jung's purpose of life, isn't a mountain summit you conquer. It's a perpetual descent inward, a deliberate unraveling of each persona, each shield, each illusion, until you rest in clarity. Day by day, you shed the echoes of external approval. Your presence becomes more silent, but denser. You cease performing and start existing so deeply that no noise, no crisis, no praise, no erosion can shift you. Your boundaries, once indistinct lines drawn by others, now pulse softly in your light. Your choices, once shaped by fear of rejection, now arise from the whispers of embodied truth. Your stillness is not surrender, it's sovereign potency. Your resistance to unkindness is not harsh, it's sacred authority. You no longer enter rooms to be anything. You arrive as everything you already are. This is not the end of becoming. It is the flowering of the self whole, resplendent, eternally becoming. And in this flowering, you don't just exist. You emanate. You no longer chase your essence. You are it. Your life is your canvas, painted in the color of remembrance. Your soul is your sanctuary, built not by escaping, but by returning. You've stopped saving everyone. You have become your own salvation. And that uncut, unshakable, unending is the end of the story you once knew. Now, you begin in a mode beyond becoming. You simply are, truly, timelessly you. You rest in that sacred silence, not because the journey is done, but because your soul has returned home to the place you always were. This quiet is not the absence of journey, it's the presence of arrival. You walk no longer with confusion or expectation, but with the steady clarity of someone who has integrated every shadow and freed every longing. What unfolds next transcends any narrative. It is the embodiment of yourself, alive and unbroken. Day by day, layer by layer, you release the ghosted roles, the worn-out expectations, the scripts you were given or wrestled into. And with each surrender, something deeper stirs your soul's quiet pulse, reclaims space. You no longer seek validation, but resonance. Not approval, but alignment. Not familiarity, but truth. In this unfolding, your boundaries are not barricades, they are stewards of your essence. Your presence is not performance, but sovereignty. Your choices spring not from pleasing, but from belonging to the call of your own integrity. You cease chasing your becoming. You simply become, not by shaping yourself into someone useful, but by unmasking to reveal your own gravity. Your calm is not like its presence, not escape, but foundation. not detachment, but the depth beneath reaction. And now you walk through life less as a character in someone else's story and more as the living essence of your own. You don't ask the world to shape you. You shape your own world through the coherence of being exactly who you are. This isn't the climax of transformation, it's the unfolding of clarity. It's not seeking an end, but embracing eternity in each breath. Not hoping for healing, but living from healing already complete. You no longer save others with exhaustion, but you save yourself with silence. That silence becomes sanctuary for you and others. In that sanctuary, you gather those who resonate, who reflect your reverence for presence, who carry their own souls unshaken. Together, you form a subtle community not built on demand, but on devotion. This is not a story. It is a becoming that is beyond words, beyond roles, beyond need. It is the soul's homecoming, unspoken, unbound, unmistakably real. And that truth, humble yet radiant, becomes everything. You've arrived quietly, sovereignly luminous with your own becoming. But this isn't the summit, it's the dawn of a new dimension of living. Now, the stillness you've cultivated is no longer a retreat from the world, but a radiance that transforms it. You drift through days like gravity made flesh, where your presence is an invitation, not an obligation. You hold space not for healing others, but to honor shared humanity. Your words, when they come, are not to convince or explain. They are ripples in the quiet of everything you've come to know. Relationships shift, not by grand gestures, but through resonance. Those who sense your clarity draw near not out of need, but in recognition. And what you learn now is profound. Stillness is your evolution, not chaos, not drama, but deep, unwavering fidelity to yourself. You no longer exist in the tension between expectations and reality, because reality now is your integrity. Expectations have no hold on you. You're not building a legacy. You simply are one. This is not the end. It's the gracefulness of an endless return to self-threading presence through every breath, every decision, every silent heartbeat. And in that subtle becoming you discover, to simply be is your most radical, timeless, and magnificent act. You stand now in the quiet aftermath of profound transformation, not as someone resting at the end of the road, but as the road itself. The horizon you once chased is now the horizon that lives within you, unshakable and unbounded. Your presence is no longer tethered to validation or demand. It radiates from a stillness so deep it needs no echo. You're calm, a gift you once thought earned through sacrifice, now simply island. In this presence, your words naturally carry weight, not because they convince, but because they align. Relationships evolve not by effort, but by mutual understanding. Those who resonate settle near, not out of need, but out of recognition. Here's your revolutionary truth. Stillness is your power, not surrender, not retreat, but serene sovereignty. You move through life without the tension of trying to prove yourself. Your reality is shaped by your integrity. Expectations no longer bend you, clarity does. You're not constructing a legacy. You embody one. This is not an ending, it's a graceful, infinite return to yourself. With each breath, each choice, each silent heartbeat, you deepen. And in that deepening you learn to simply be is your ultimate act of presence, purpose, and power. And so you arrive again and again, not at a finish line, but at a truth that keeps unfolding. You are not here to prove. You are not here to perform. You are not here to save. You are here to be, fully, fiercely, silently, if needed, because now you know real love doesn't need a savior, it needs a soul. Present, clear, whole. You will still give, but never again from depletion. You will still care, but never again without discernment. You will still love, but never again by losing yourself. You've stopped saving everyone, and in doing so, You've saved the one who matters most, yourself. And in that sacred choice, you will always see who truly cares. They won't be the ones who clung to your giving. They will be the ones who stood with your becoming. Let the world misunderstand your stillness. Let them question your silence. Let them walk away when you stop bending. Because those who remain when you no longer break, those are your people. Those are your mirrors. Those are your sacred circle. And you are not a savior. You are the sanctuary, now and forever whole, unshakable, and finally free. You think kindness will shield you. You think if you are careful enough, gentle enough, generous enough, people will see the purity of your intentions and treat you accordingly. You think that if you move through the world with an open hand, no one will bite it. And for a time, this illusion works until it doesn't. Until you meet the cold fact that your goodness will not be enough. That you can be patient, understanding, compassionate to the point of self-erasure, and still someone will despise you, not because of what you've done, but because of what you are. Carl Jung warned of this. He understood that the human mind is not a mirror, it is a projector. People do not see you as you are. They see you as they are. They take the qualities in themselves they cannot accept, and they throw them at you like knives. Your kindness will not stop this. In fact, it will sometimes invite it. Because your kindness is a mirror too, one that reflects back their cruelty, their bitterness, their inability to be as they wish they were. You see, to the wounded, genuine kindness is not a gift. It is a reminder of everything they lack, a reminder of how cold they've become, a reminder that there is still warmth in the world, and that they have let it die inside themselves. And reminders breed resentment. Nietzsche once said, in individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. The same applies to resentment. One person may misunderstand you, but put that person in a group, and your kindness becomes a target, because groups operate not on truth, but on shared emotion. If even one bitter voice plants the seed, they are not as good as they seem. The soil of insecurity will grow it into poison. This is the first truth you must swallow if you want to be free. Kindness does not guarantee love. Kindness does not guarantee respect. Kindness does not even guarantee safety. People will dislike you because your presence dismantles their excuses. They will dislike you because you succeed without the venom they believe is necessary to survive. They will dislike you because your very existence disproves the narrative they've built to justify their own bitterness. Think of the prisoner who has accepted his cell as the whole world. If you walk in and tell him the door is unlocked, he will not thank you, he will hate you. Because now he must face the fact that he has been complicit in his own captivity. Your kindness to him is not liberation, it is accusation. And there is another, darker layer to this. Some people will dislike you because they cannot control you. When you are kind from weakness, when you bend to please, when you give to avoid conflict, people tolerate you, even use you. But when you are kind from strength, when you could destroy but choose not to, they feel the power in your restraint. They feel the blade you keep sheathed, and it terrifies them. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But the truly dangerous are those who can be loved and feared at the same time. Your kindness, when it is backed by strength, makes people uneasy because it is no longer predictable. They cannot bully you into giving more than you choose. They cannot guilt you into submission. Your kindness is sovereign, and sovereignty cannot be manipulated. This is why the purest kindness often draws the sharpest hate. It is untouchable. It is not a transaction, not a performance, not a plea for validation. It comes from someone who has looked into their own shadow, who has faced their capacity for cruelty and still chosen mercy. And here is the paradox. The more genuine your kindness becomes, the smaller the circle that can receive it. Not because the world is devoid of good people, but because most are not ready to face themselves in your reflection. They will prefer those who flatter their illusions, who tell them what they want to hear, who keep the shared lie intact. You will be tested for this. Your kindness will be called fake, manipulative, self-serving. You will be told you're too much or not enough, no matter how carefully you measure yourself. And in those moments, you will feel the pull to defend yourself, to prove your heart is clean. But here is the freedom. You do not have to. You are not here to convince the blind of the Sunday. You are not here to pull the drowning to shore when they are determined to drag you under with them. You are here to live your truth without apology, to be kind because it is your nature, not because it is your strategy. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. If who you truly are is kind, then your work is not to be liked. It is to remain uncorrupted in a world that will give you every reason to harden. The greatest test of kindness is whether it survives the hate it attracts. So let them misunderstand you. Let them resent you. Let them tell their stories about you in rooms you will never enter. You are not their prisoner. Your kindness is not a bargaining chip. It is a crown. And a crown does not bow to opinion. It rests where it belongs, no matter who looks upon it with envy. And when you finally learn this, you stop asking why people dislike you, and you start asking why you ever thought their liking was required. Because the truth you come to face is brutal in its simplicity. Most people's approval is conditional. It lasts only as long as you play the role they've assigned you. The moment you step outside the lines, whether by speaking a truth they don't want to hear, by refusing to carry the weight they've put on your shoulders, or simply by existing too brightly, you will feel the warmth in their voice turn to ice. And here is the danger. If you have built your sense of worth on their warmth, you will chase it back into their control. You will soften your edges, mute your colors, and shrink yourself until you fit their comfort again. That is how most people lose themselves, not in one dramatic betrayal, but in 1,000 small surrenders to keep being liked. But you must understand something. Being universally liked is not a sign of goodness, it is a sign of compromise. The saints and thinkers who reshaped the world, Jung, Socrates, Gandhi, Jesus, Nietzsche, were all disliked, slandered, even hated by many in their time. Not because they were cruel, but because their existence challenged the comfort of the masses. And your kindness, when it is real, does the same. Because true kindness is not compliance. It does not exist to keep everyone happy. True kindness has a spine. It can say no, it can set boundaries. It can let someone walk away rather than bend to manipulation. And this, to the insecure, feels like rejection. People often confuse nice with kind, but they are not the same. Niceness is a performance. It seeks approval. Kindness is a principle. It seeks truth. Niceness bends to avoid conflict. Kindness stands, even when standing creates conflict. When you operate from kindness instead of niceness, you will trigger people's shadows. They will sense you are not dependent on their validation, and it will unsettle them. They will feel, even if they can't articulate it, that you can walk away at any time, not because you don't care, but because you refuse to betray yourself to keep them. This is the freedom they want but haven't claimed. And freedom, when seen by those still in chains, feels like an insult. So they will test you. They will push, prod, and provoke, hoping to find the hidden weakness they can use to pull you back into the familiar dance. They will spread subtle poison in conversations. They think they're better than us. They're not as nice as they pretend. I just get a bad vibe. None of these are about you. They are about the threat you represent to the stories they tell themselves. And here is the most liberating and dangerous realization of all. You do not need to fight these perceptions. The moment you try to convince someone of your goodness, you have already stepped onto their stage, into their script, and accepted their authority to judge you. You've handed them the pen, and now they can rewrite you however they wish. Instead, you let the misunderstanding stand. You let the rumors breathe and die without your interference. You let their dislike echo unanswered. Not because you are passive, but because you understand that silence is the language of those who no longer need permission to exist. In that silence, you find something few ever touch: sovereignty. And sovereignty cannot be given, it must be taken. Taken from the grip of your own need to be approved of. Taken from the reflex to apologize for your truth. Taken from the fear that without their affection you will be nothing. The moment you take it, you stop being fragile. Your kindness stops being a negotiation and becomes a law, your law. You give when you choose, you hold back when you choose, and neither choice is dictated by the hunger for someone's smile. And this is when people begin to feel something far stronger than dislike toward you. They begin to feel respect, even if they will never say it aloud. Because respect is born not from pleasing others, but from living in a way they secretly wish they could. You will lose some people in this process. Let them go. You will be misunderstood. Let it happen. Because those who remain, those who can stand in the heat of your truth without demanding you dim it, are the ones who are capable of meeting your kindness with their own. And when that happens, you will see the thing you thought you were chasing all along. Not universal approval, but mutual recognition. The meeting of two people who need nothing from each other's masks because both have put them down. That is the moment you stop asking why they dislike you, because you realize it was never about you at all. And once that realization sinks into your bones, the entire landscape of your life changes. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop measuring every word to make sure it lands softly enough. You stop twisting yourself into shapes you were never meant to take. You begin to move with a different weight. Quiet, steady, immovable. Not because you've hardened into bitterness, but because you've shed the need to be anything other than what you are. This is the point where your kindness becomes dangerous. Not the kind of danger born from harm, but the kind that unsettles the illusions people have lived in for years. You've become living proof that you can be warm without being weak, generous without being exploited, loving without being controlled. To those still addicted to control, you will feel like a threat. To those who rely on the obedience of others to feel powerful, you will be intolerable. And yet to the few who are ready, you will be a beacon. You will show them what it looks like to stand in their own truth without apology. History has always treated such people with suspicion. Think of Galileo, who dared to speak of a cosmos that did not revolve around man's fragile ego. Think of Harriet Tubman, who freed not just herself but others, not asking permission from those who would keep her in chains. Think of Jung himself, who refused to bow to the dogmas of Freud when they no longer aligned with what he knew to be true. Each one understood that to live authentically is to accept being disliked, sometimes even hated. But they also understood the deeper law. To betray yourself for the comfort of others is to live as a ghost in your own life. And what is the point of kindness if it comes from a ghost? What is the point of giving if every gift is laced with the poison of your own resentment? Because deep down you know you are giving against your will. When you free yourself from the addiction to being liked, your kindness becomes pure again. It no longer drips with obligation. It is no longer a transaction. It becomes what it was always meant to be, an expression of your nature, not a tool of survival. And here's the beautiful paradox. You will still be disliked by some, maybe even more than before, but the weight of it will be gone. Their disapproval will feel as light as dust on your shoulder, because you no longer measure your worth by the scales in their hands. You will find yourself giving more freely to those who can receive without trying to own you. You will set boundaries without guilt and watch the wrong people fall away without regret. You will notice that your energy no longer leaks into the endless labor of managing other people's perceptions. And with that energy reclaimed, you will begin to build not for approval, not for applause, but because creation itself is an act of defiance against the forces that would have you live small. The day will come when someone looks at you and says, "I don't like them." And you will smile not in arrogance, but in quiet knowing, because you will understand that their dislike is simply the sound of their world cracking, the old walls shifting under the weight of a truth they are not ready to hold. And you will let them feel it. You will not rush to fix it. Because your role was never to make them comfortable. Your role was to live in a way that proves they can be free too. That is the deepest kindness of all. And the deeper you walk into this truth, the more you see how upside down the world's idea of kindness has become. Most people don't want kindness, they want appeasement. They want you to smile while you hand over your time, your energy, your boundaries, and even your dignity. They want a kindness that costs you everything and costs them nothing. But that is not kindness. That is servitude in disguise. The kind of kindness that changes the world, the kind that shapes souls, is not the soft submission that leaves you hollow. It is the fire that warms without burning itself out. It is the river that flows without letting itself be drained dry. It is the kind of kindness that says, I will give, but I will not give myself away. And this, to many, feels like rejection, because they've been conditioned to believe that love, compassion, and generosity must always come at your own expense. The moment you show them a different way, they feel the discomfort of rethinking everything they've learned about connection. Carl Jung understood this tension well. He spoke often about the necessity of individuation, the process of becoming whole within yourself, rather than living as a fragment for the sake of pleasing the collective. When you begin this process, you inevitably disrupt the systems around you, not because you attack them, but because you no longer feed them the parts of yourself they have depended on. It's like pulling a keystone from an arch. The moment you remove it, the structure trembles. And you will feel that tremor in your relationships, in your family, even in your work. Those who depended on your compliance will resist. They will push harder. Some will try to guilt you. Others will try to smear you. A few will simply vanish. And here lies the truth most people cannot face. If your kindness requires you to disappear in order for it to be accepted, it is not kindness, it is self-erasure. You are not here to be a doormat polished to look like a throne. You are here to stand, fully visible, with a spine as strong as your heart is soft. This is why people dislike you when you're truly kind, because true kindness is paired with truth. And truth is the one thing the ego cannot tolerate without resistance. Your presence becomes a silent challenge to every falsehood they've been living. And it is far easier to attack the challenger than to confront the lie. But once you see this clearly, their dislike loses its sting. You stop taking it personally. You stop thinking, what did I do wrong? And start asking, what did I do that made the truth impossible to ignore? And something remarkable happens here. You stop fearing their withdrawal. You stop thinking in terms of keeping everyone, and you start thinking in terms of keeping yourself. Because the moment you lose yourself in the pursuit of being liked, you've lost the only thing that makes your kindness worth anything. There is a power in that shift that is hard to describe. You feel it in the way you walk into a room, not scanning faces for approval, but carrying your presence like a torch that doesn't need permission to burn. You feel it in the way you speak, not softening your truth into something tasteless, but offering it whole and letting the right people choose to taste it. And you feel it most in the way you sleep at night. Because for the first time, you're not replaying every interaction, wondering if you said the right thing, wondering if they still like you. You're not crafting the next version of yourself to avoid tomorrow's conflict. You're simply you. And if that is enough for you, it will never again matter if it is enough for them. Because once you've crossed that invisible line, once you've chosen being real over being liked, there is no going back. You can't unsee how much of your old life was built on performance. You can't unknow how much of your kindness was actually a currency you traded for acceptance. You can't slip back into the costume without feeling its weight choke the air out of your lungs. It's like leaving a dimly lit room and stepping into the Sunday. The light is so sharp, so unfiltered, that it hurts your eyes at first. But after a while, you wonder how you ever thought the shadows were enough. This is where the world begins to test you differently. When your kindness was a mask, People tested its limits. How much can we take before they snap? But now that your kindness has roots, the tests change. Now they want to know, will you still stand when you're not understood? Will you still give when no one thanks you? Will you still keep your heart open when the room is filled with cold eyes? And here's the irony, you will. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you finally understand that kindness is not a reaction to the world. It is a declaration of who you are. This is the kind of kindness the ancient Stoics understood. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He knew that goodness is not something you barter for approval. It's a posture you take in the face of everything that could make you bitter. But here's the shadow side. The more unshakable your kindness becomes, the more it will expose the fragility in others. Your composure will make their volatility louder. Your peace will make their chaos feel more unbearable. Your refusal to be manipulated will make their need for control turn desperate. And so, they will label you cold, arrogant, selfish. It won't matter that your actions prove otherwise. What matters to them is that you no longer feed the part of them that wants to consume you. This is where you learn the deepest discipline, to let their story about you live and die without touching you. Because the moment you bend to correct it, you've re-entered the performance. You've told them their approval still has power over your reality, and you cannot afford to give that power away again. So you walk on. You give to those who can receive without taking. You stand firm when someone tries to twist your truth into a weapon. You look at the eyes that glare at you and see not enemies, but people still trapped in the illusion you once lived in. And instead of resentment, you feel a strange compassion. Not the kind that sacrifices yourself for them, but the kind that silently says, "I hope you find your own way out." And this is the turning point, the place where being disliked loses all its teeth. Because now, it's not about you at all. It never was. You've stopped making their reaction the measure of your worth. You've stopped trading pieces of yourself for a fragile kind of peace. You've stopped shrinking to fit into rooms that were never meant to hold the full shape of you. And in that space, where their approval no longer reaches, you find the rarest thing a human being can hold. A kindness that needs nothing in return. A kindness that cannot be bought, shamed, or manipulated. A kindness that is not soft out of fear, but strong out of choice. The kind of kindness that, yes, will still be disliked. And yet, it will outlast every opinion spoken against it. Because it is no longer for them. It is for you. And that makes it untouchable. And when you arrive here at the summit of this long, invisible climb, you understand what the journey was really for. It was never about winning every heart. It was never about protecting yourself from criticism. It was never about proving your goodness to those determined not to see it. It was about returning to yourself, because there is a different kind of peace in knowing that you will be disliked and being completely unshaken by it. Not numb awake, not cold-centered. It's the kind of peace that comes from realizing that love given freely is never diminished by those who cannot receive it, that the value of your truth is not set by the hands that try to weigh it. And this is the final paradox. When you no longer need to be liked, you are finally free to love. Not the love that bends until it breaks, not the love that trades authenticity for acceptance, but the love that stands tall-rooted, clear, unwavering. Some will still walk away from it. Some will still throw stones at it. But others, those who have been quietly searching for something real, will see it for what it island. And they will stay. Not because you bent to keep them, but because you stood and let them find you. This is the gift of being disliked when you are truly kind. It strips away every false connection, every shallow bond, every performance-based affection, until only the unshakable remains. And in that stripped-down circle, you will see faces that do not flinch at your truth. You will hear laughter that does not hide an agenda. You will feel the rare, steady warmth of people who meet your kindness not with suspicion but with their own. The rest, let them go. Let them speak. Let them misunderstand. You do not live for their comfort. You live for your truth. And in the end, you will walk through this world carrying the kind of strength no slander can wound, no absence can hollow, no opinion can touch, because you will know that your kindness, real, rooted, untouchable, belongs to you. And that is a crown no one can take.